So we're here at Arendal and I'm standing here with Sonny Kapoor. And can you tell us a little bit about your work?
I work on advising governments, multilateral agencies, investors on finance, on the shape of the economy, on international issues such as sustainability and development.
Alright, and the topic of the next ISFiT is corruption, and one thing we also want to focus on is tax havens and illicit capital flows, and the fact that the amount of money that is stolen from developing countries through illicit capital flows is 8 times greater than the amount of money that goes the other way in aid. So, do you want to comment on this, and how important you think the financial sector is in developing the world in general?
Right. Now, what you may not know is that this figure you just quoted is potentially, if I remember correctly, was a figure that I came up with together with some other people about 12 years back.
All right.
And it's very nice to have this figure quoted back as a fact. I was one of the founders back in 2002-2003 of the International Tax Justice Network. I then, when I was a strategy advisor to the Norwegian government, launched the Illicit Finance Task Force for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and have been advising the OECD, the UN, the World Bank and the IMF on exactly these issues.
Right.
And the reason I've been doing all of this is because I think it's extremely important. And what's interesting about this particular issue is that whether you care about the sustainability of the welfare state, which is a huge domestic issue for Norwegians and for Germans, even if they don't care about development, or whether you care about financial sector stability, which as we know after the crisis is something we all care about. So what most people don't realize is that tax havens were a very important trigger and a cause of the crisis, because it was used for regulatory arbitrage in the way that tax havens are used for tax arbitrage. It is extremely important given the increase in what we are seeing in terms of the rise of ISIS in the Middle East, terrorism, international crime syndicates, trafficking of women, illegal logging. It is also absolutely critical in undermining development, as you yourself suggested, both directly through the flow of capital, the figure that you quoted at me, but indirectly through enabling corruption. I grew up in India where Swiss bank accounts of politicians were taken for granted. So for all these reasons, a number of constituencies ought to be extremely, really serious about tackling tax havens. And it doesn't matter whether you care about development or not, you must care about at least one of the other issues. So I think it's one of the most important defining issues of this time.
So you're saying that the way tax havens and the financial sector works today is it's fueling both conflict and corruption in the world?
Conflict, corruption, instability, and an undermining of the social fabric of countries. Nothing less than that.
But when I'm going to development conferences, this is rarely mentioned. Why do you think that is?
I think that the world lives in silos. The world of development, the world of environment, be it ministries or NGOs working on these issues, exists more or less in isolation from the world of central banks, from the world of financial regulators, from the world of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, for example. And what we try and do at Redefine is we connect these worlds because there are far too many silos. And of course, this is the story of the 5 blind men and the elephant. And I think that's why you only hear a partial perspective.
All right. You told me now that this figure that I quoted as a fact might not be the right figure. How do you think
That's not what I said. I said this figure, I might have been one of the sources of this figure.
All right, yeah. Great. And at ISFiT, this is the last question, we're going to have students from all around the world talking about corruption and also about the financial sector and tax haven.
Yeah.
If it's one question that you think we should discuss, what would that be?
I think that the multiple on the so a friend of mine, Vito Tanzi, who used to be the head of fiscal affairs at the IMF, called tax havens fiscal termites.
All right.
And I think that from the perspective of getting policy action on this issue, the discussion needs to be a little bit along the lines of what I mentioned, which is what are the multiple negative externalities that tax havens inflict on the world, of which capital flight from poor countries is only one. And I think it's only by taking that multidimensional approach can we attract a political constituency that is big enough and strong enough to actually take serious action and shut these bloody things down.
All right, thank you very much, and I very much hope to see you in Trondheim.
I hope to be able to make it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.